Hey folks, Rob Flux here with another Real Deal in the Field. And Andre, mate, you are smashing these Real Deal in the Fields out. This is the fourth one, mate. Fourth one?
Yeah.
Can't count, can't keep up. There's so many going on. Mate, tell us a little bit about this particular project. When did you pick it up? How much did you pick it up for? And what is the site itself?
Yeah, so this one is the 153. It's the Strata subdivision. As you may notice, in my previous projects, kind of becomes bread and butter, and it's the same strategy all the time. It's the between 3 and 6 council. This one was picked up in 2021. I think it was October 2021. Again, it was just before we had any real consequences of the COVID. Again, we were running feasibilities still on the money that before the market uplift for the resales and before the bill cost going up.
Yeah, and you just said that you're sticking to the same sort of project, but also in the same area. You found a patch that works for you. This one is only a couple of streets away from the one that we looked at, that you picked it up about 3 months later. So the previous one, look at the previous Real Deals in the Fields, folk, and you'll see those. So what is it that you love about this area?
The only thing I would say, I love it for a while and then I don't, because the numbers don't stack up.
And that's what happens. The markets move, folks.
Yeah.
And what happens, and I'll tell you, everyone who's seen this before, I talk about a bell curve where I guess lots of activity on the way up and lots of activity on the way down, but they're only profitable on the way up. And I guess, so you're seeing lots of activity with things happening, but we're on the backwards slope where Joe Public's gotten involved. They think that everything's worth $1 gazillion, so they start getting emotional and paying way too much, and then make deals not stack. So, so whilst it was a really good patch, mate, have you got a new patch? Don't tell anyone where it is.
It's all around here. It's just about, you can stay in the same patch, but just a change of strategy.
Yeah.
And that's it. You don't have to go anywhere. But in saying this, this project was acquired just over 1.3 million. At the moment, if you want to look at the same project, you'll be looking about 1.5, 1.6. Some people go crazy, 1.7, starting 1.8. Obviously, once you add that to the original purchase price, with the same resales, with the same bill cost, you're kind of making just the peanuts or just scratching the surface to be just positive or neutral with the investments.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we said that you had a project around the corner, and if anyone goes back and looks at that old recording, the challenge with that site was it was very, very skinny at the front and very wide at the back. This one's the exact opposite. It's very, very wide at the front and very, very skinny at the back. What sort of challenges did that create, mate?
Oh, first of all, it's no brainer with the front one. It's the biggest one. However, because we're having the biggest setback at the front for this street, and that's the widest stretch, so really we're losing much more land on this project than we were using on the when we were losing on the project that we were losing on the project that we
the other project.
Yes. There was a similar shape, but it just
so bigger land impact is what you're saying.
Bigger land impact.
Yeah.
Because the largest setback on the widest length.
Yeah, and you'll see the impact of that. We're going to have a look out the back in a couple of secs, and you'll see the impact of that on the rear house design. So I guess pretty significant there. The other thing that was really interesting in this one was there was a change in the council rules. Now, New South Wales has some terminology, folks. So for those of you who are watching this all the way around the country, an LEP, a local environmental plan, and a DCP, development control plan.
Yeah.
They're the rules under which everything is measured, and so there were some changes to the LEP that were actually happening at the time. So how did that impact you?
So in a nutshell, what have changed in the Central Coast Council is a lot of the LEP details been scrapped, and on the paper it looks like it's a better control, giving more power to the developer. But in fact, DCP was reinforced so much that is it's really hard to make 3-pack work, or any other development that you could be doing in the past. Now you can't do it because of the setbacks and private space and back setback and the side setback, front setback. and all this. So it got really challenging, and the council now keeping up their rules. It's not like in the past, or look at this variation, it's been done that way. Look at that variation, it's been done that way. There's no justification anymore. It's a clean start, and they're keeping that 100% compliant.
Yeah. So what that means in human speak, folks, is as they start to see exceptions happening to properties around the place, the next developer tries to use that exception to also get an exception on their site, and then over time, that creep then starts to mean that council starts to lose control. So every now and then they just go and reset the rules. When they do, there is no, exception.
Leeway,
There's no examples of anyone under the new rules getting that exception anymore. So they can basically have a brand spanking new clean start. So that's what happened, what attempted to happen here. You had the old rules in place, and the new rules were proposed on public display, but not yet enforced. And so because they weren't enforced, they wanted to apply them, but you were able to argue your case to say, no, we don't want that. So no deal.
Well, actually, the language was different. They said, oh, look, by the new LP, you should have that much setback at the back. I think it was a 4.5, and we had 1.5 under the current LP at that time. And they said, no, we can make it 4.5. We look at this like, we can just grab the back unit and throw it away in the bin. That's the only way we could do it. And we just replied to them, no, we stick to what we proposed, running the threat of DA being refused. However, we chat with our professionals, and they said no legal background of that being refused based on the LP that's not enforced.
Yeah, very good. So what we're going to do, folks, we're going to go out the back. We're going to have a look at the impacts of that narrowing block and a couple of other things. So we'll see you in a sec. Hey folks, here we are out the back of the site, and we touched on the fact before that the back of the block starts to narrow down. You can see the impacts of that all the way at the back with the size of that, fence and how adjacent the townhouse is to the side boundary. It's also pretty close to the rear boundary as well. Means it's slightly smaller backyard, but still compliant from that perspective. But there were some other impacts, I guess, with the narrowing of the lots, and more specifically, the impacts that it had on the design of the middle townhouse, mate. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so middle townhouse, when we look at the design, we're looking at the floor space. We want to make sure that we fit the turning circles, we fit the driveway, we fit the garages, and then we play with this, with what we've got left. Plus we have to add private spaces with the certain size, which is 40 square meters. For the Central Coast Council, usually for the CDC or compliant development, you only have 20 square meters. This council is very generous, so you have to consider your private space seriously just at the stage when you do concept plans, just for the ground floor. So in this case, we run out of space on the ground for the townhouse number 2 because of the turning circles where we're standing. That's entry to the garage. Then there's another turning circle there for the unit at the back, and we couldn't fit anywhere private space. So we had to design it that way that we put it on top of the single garage plus some extension and overlay both sides, and another portion that's missing went downstairs on the ground floor. So combined, they meet the criteria.
Which means the garden, folks, is on top of the garage. That's the impact of all of that. And the dwelling is actually built upside down. So all the living areas are actually upstairs, and the bedrooms are actually downstairs. And we're going to pop upstairs and actually have a look at that so you can see what a garden on the top of a garage is going to start to look like. We're going to see in a sec, folks. Here we are, folks, upstairs in townhouse number 2, and as we touched on before, this one has been built upside down with a very, very creative solution in order to get the private open space, and that is having the garage, on top of that garage is private open space, effectively the garden area. So still has to be tiled and some fences put on there and that sort of thing, mate. Very, very creative solution. Where did you come up with the idea for doing that?
So we did similar project about 3 years ago, and we had the same solution for having private space on top of the garage, and that's where we basically newly copied the whole unit from the previous project and put it in here, inserted in between. Whereas the front one and back one we had to redesign, the middle one is kind of with a small.
It's a cookie cutter of the previous design.
Yeah.
So if you're ever going to be doing a solution like this, folks, there's a couple of things that you want to consider. Firstly, it needs to be weight bearing. So there's going to be people standing on there, barbecues, I guess lounges, those sorts of things. Eskies, that sort of stuff. Also needs to be waterproofed and drained appropriately. And that can, if it's not done well, can actually be a long-term challenge. So in this instance, done well. Fingers crossed.
Well, it's proven it's worked in the past. No one complains. Guy waved me another day. Say hi, how are you? Didn't say anything, so it looks like it didn't drop through the ceiling roof yet.
Very good. That's what we want to hear. Now, there was one other challenge that you had on site that we forgot to mention while we we're actually downstairs before. You actually had a challenge with your detention, water detention tank. What were the challenges that you had on that?
So we had one engineer at the DA stage that was completed, and then we had to change engineers for the construction certificate, and we signed a bill contract before we actually got unconditional approval from CC. And then we submitted him not the final, but the draft set of the CC from the new. We submitted to the builder draft CC set of the new engineer, and then the set changed a little bit before he went from the first CC set to the final CC set. And then what changed there? A few Atlantis cells were added to the drawing set that we submitted for the build contract, and then I didn't pick it up. And then once we came to the stormwater inspection, private certifier noticed that two sections were missing, and we had to dig it out. Add to, I think there was 2 or 4. I don't know exactly how many Atlantis sets had to be added. But it cost us 2 weeks delay and $16,000 in variation.
So just to help everyone out, those cells that actually in the detention basin, what they allow things to do, it stops debris from, I guess, going all the way through. So it also means that if there's any water flow, it slows down that silt, all sorts of things like that. So these cells are kind of little plug-ins, kind of like Lego bricks that allow the tanks to be modular in size. 2 of those, I guess, were changed or added between the design and the construct, and not picked up, I guess, when the building contract was done. So rip it all up, add them back in, put it back together. So 16K went in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Hurts, but it could have been worse, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Folks, thank you very much for sharing this particular project, mate. When's it actually going to finish?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. So that's the plan. So that's the plan. So Andrey's done a number of these Real Deal in the Fields, and has also presented at our upcoming, or at our meetups, the full version of the Real Deal. So we're looking forward to seeing this at one of our upcoming Real Deals. We run those all the way around the country, folks. Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide. Plus we live stream them everywhere. So no matter where you're located, you can actually watch this. Andrey is based in Sydney. So if you want to see that live, watch out for one of our upcoming events. So mate, till then, thank you very much for your time once again. And can't wait to see our next project, mate. Till then, folks, bye for now.
Bye.